Over the decades, our society decides what's acceptable and what is no longer acceptable. So here's our list of what's acceptable that shouldn't be and what isn't acceptable that should be. Let me know what we left off the list. Watch and or listen while we tackle tough and sometimes taboo topics filmed live over drinks. This platform allows us to articulate our thoughts and challenge our beliefs. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy. All right, with all those bottles opening, we are live. This is SipTalk, episode 255. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by James, the Boswell, philosopher, philanthropist, philanderer, philatelist, phlebotomist, the man of many PHs. I don't know where we came up with that. We just keep rolling with it. Give me a PH word, we'll add it on. Welcome to SipTalk. Today we are talking about things that...
Photojournalist.
There you go. Things
for someone who almost never takes pictures.
Because your dumb phone, I think.
No, it's my phone can take pictures.
It's now. It can, right?
Yeah, it just I don't use that capability.
So today what we're talking about is things that are acceptable that probably shouldn't be, and things that aren't acceptable that probably should be. I heard you crack open a drink.
We're switching it up. My pool coach bought me Michelob Ultra last weekend, so that's what we're drinking.
I had a few Michelob Ultras.
So I'm doing my best impression of a white chick on a fitness kick.
All right, very cool.
That has a nice ring to it.
White chick on a fitness kick. So, we get a lot to cover. We were off last week. It was a bye week for us. We got bar trivia, which I thought was a very easy question. We'll get there in a little while, but should we start at the top here?
Yeah, let's get rolling on this. Got a long list.
No time to spare. Things that are acceptable that should not be. And your first one was
people having their speakerphone on in public, whether it's like having an actual conversation and you can fully hear the person on the phone, or music, video, what have you. Having their phone make noise in public it seems like that's acceptable because nobody ever calls somebody out for doing it, but it really shouldn't be.
You know, I was on speakerphone in my office today, and then I stepped out of my office, and I just had my phone in my hand, still on the phone, and I was like, oh shit, and I just ramped the volume all the way down, and then it was still on speakerphone, but I put it up to my head because I just kind of knew that's not an acceptable thing, but people do that all the time. But what gets me is because I commute on the train daily and not just the subway on like New Jersey Transit, which is a much quieter train, is people that will sit on these trains listening to YouTube videos or scrolling through social media at full volume, and just everybody else had their silent. They're just watching some shit at full volume.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is there's a very easy solution to this, and it's just wireless headphones. They work great.
Or, I have watched videos without headphones before where I want to hear them. So what I do is I go up to like 10% volume and put it up to my head.
Yeah, but then it's really hard to watch the video.
Well, I mean, depending on I'm not going to watch an hour-long YouTube video like this podcast with no audio. Okay.
Well, right. But seriously, if you want to listen to some kind of media while you're in public, just get a set of headphones, man. They're cheap and they work well.
Yeah, well, you don't need to spend a lot of money on headphones. That is for certain.
You can. There's a difference. Like the more you spend, the better it's going to be. But like for $25 or $50, you can get something that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're getting. Yeah. Now I got to give one that.
Yeah, blame the writers on this one, right?
What's that?
Blame the writers.
Yep, I will take the blame. So I hate this controversial shit, but I mean, it is a controversial podcast. So things that are acceptable that shouldn't be, and what we have written here is the swing of the pendulum on fat acceptance and health ignorance. So I'm all for not body shaming people, but it feels, and not so much actually in the last couple years, but for a while we were kind of pushing people who were severely unhealthy and saying these should be accepted. And my thinking is that's okay, but Like, let's not ignore that this person looked like they're a short jog, or away from a heart attack here.
This is a
Uh,
complicated one
it's
because
a
like
very complex one because I want to be accepting, but I also the issue is the ignorance of the health aspect of it.
yeah, because I look at it as like, first of all, body shaming or just shaming people in general rarely has positive effects, and usually it just makes whatever mental health conditions there are worse. So it like and like being obese or whatever, it falls under that category. And so
I'll give
like
you. Go
let
ahead.
me just
Go
finish
ahead.
this out. So like I don't like the idea of like it being okay to shame fat people, but on the other hand, like the fat acceptance movement of saying this should be considered just as attractive as something else, or like ignoring that it's unhealthy to live that way, to me I think is a really dangerous and irresponsible message.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. If I had skin cancer and I had like, because obviously I'm bald, the sun hits my head. I have to wear sunblock for the first time in my life, and on the top of my head because it gets a lot of sun. But if I just started having kind of these like cancery looking things on my head and all these sunspots, and everybody was just like, "Oh, that's beautiful," and nobody was like, "Hey, you should get that checked, man. Maybe that's not healthy."
Yeah.
And it's like obviously it's on the top of my head.
Right, and so,
Yeah.
like, they wouldn't
You
wanna
would think
shame you for saying, like, "Look at all the moles on his head," but they might
no.
wanna say, "Hey, you should go to a doctor because that
You
might
should
not be healthy."
have you. I mean, just yeah, but just not being allowed to have that conversation. Not somebody not being allowed to be like, "Yo, have you looked into that?"
Because like, like, there's 2 extremes, which is all fat people are lazy pieces of shit, and that's a bad argument. But on the other hand, fat people are beautiful and don't need to change anything is also irresponsible, and it's somewhere in the middle, and
Well, that's what I said. I feel like the pendulum has maybe started to come back a little bit. I don't know, but I just again, I think, and we're going to get into some other health issues here in terms of things that are acceptable that probably shouldn't be. So, so you have one I maybe don't agree with. I don't know where my personal jury is in this one, but go ahead.
all right. Having a conversation with somebody in person while you have headphones on or earbuds in.
Oh, I thought you meant having a conversation on the phone with earbuds in. No,
No, no, no,
when
no.
I have somebody that walks into my office or somebody that walks up to me and having a conversation with me, and they don't take their earbuds off, to me that's like the same as being inside, walking over to somebody and not taking your sunglasses off.
Right. So yeah, maybe it should have been written better, but I think you're now agreeing with me.
Yeah, I am agreeing with you.
Like,
Raj has gotten uh, got to mention Raj here in the background, feeding us your comments live from Instagram. So if you are watching on Instagram, we really can't interact with your comments. You got to watch on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch, the live stream. We see your live comments. But Raj has got one. He said, "You go on a first date and she helps herself to your French fries. Is that acceptable and it shouldn't be? Or is it unacceptable?" I think people's minds are made up on one side of this or not.
I mean,
Um,
I
but
personally wouldn't really care if the date's going well. Like, then I'm going to be fine
mm,
with it. If the date's not going well, then I'm not going to be fine with it. But like,
okay, so here's another one, which is also Rasha suggesting this one real time. James and I have spent a lot of time really working on this list. We, we spent a lot of time trimming down the fat, just giving you guys the highest points. I'm joking, but Rasha's got a lot. One, he mentioned people on the subway wearing slippers and pajamas outside, and I was on the fence about like the pajama pants, like just because I always think if you're going to leave the house, you should look a certain level of acceptable. But these slippers in the public to me is like slippers are indoor shoes, meaning like you can wear them in the house, on the carpet, walk around. But the second you go outdoors with them, you can then no longer wear them inside. But they're also, it's not that once you've crossed that line, you can't go back inside with them. It's also once you've crossed that line, they are now ruined. They're
right?
not
It's
built
that
for the
they're
outdoors.
like the outside is dirty compared to the inside. And so, like, the whole point of having slippers is shoes that you can wear inside that won't make any other room dirty. As soon as you wear them outside, now they're making every room dirty.
But they're also not built for the outside. They
Nope.
even if they have a rubber bottom, it doesn't have tread. They're not meant for you to like walk. Um, I don't know. I
All
agree.
right.
I would agree
But
with Rob.
yeah, so the like if you're having a conversation with somebody and you had media that you were listening to, like when I go to the grocery store, I have headphones on every single time. When I get to the checkout counter, when it's my turn to actually pay,
Me too. Me too. Every once in a while, I'll be like in a phone call, and I'll be like overly apologetic, like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry," because it's wrong.
I'll just
Because it
like
shouldn't be acceptable.
if I'm in a store and I get a phone call, I'll say, "I'll call you back when I'm out of the store."
Yeah, I
Because I'm
mean,
not gonna have a conversation in a grocery store. I'll listen to music because that's private.
also grocery stores generally have really bad reception. Must be something how the buildings are made. Moving on. This is yours. I'll let you introduce it.
Sharing pictures of your young children on social media, and I'm talking like baby pictures, like probably 1 to 3 or
No,
4
I'll go,
years
I'll
old.
go all the way up to like I I, I don't know. I feel
I'm
like
willing to go higher than that,
yeah.
but like it's the younger the child is, the more egregious the offense.
I mean, it's just there. It depends on social media. It depends on what your audience is on social media. Most people's social media is totally open. They got a whole bunch of people they don't know. If it's like you and your family members, that's probably okay. But the fact that you're
Yeah,
like sharing your babies, but then I just went on to say
but
like,
like the people that I'm really speaking to are the ones who post the like it for attention just generally.
well, I went on to say literally 90% of what people post on social media does not belong in the public element. Just
Probably true. I
like
wouldn't know directly though.
unless there's some relevance to your lunch in other people's lives, nobody needs to see your lunch.
Why?
Just
Yeah. All right. You know what? We're gonna add that one in. Taking pictures of your food at a restaurant. Cut that shit out, man.
I mean, I can imagine if there's some relevance of it or something, but generally, it's like when people post fucking videos of fireworks. It's
Uh,
like
I'll say the only exception I can think of is like if you get like a cake decorated for an occasion or whatever, and the cake decorator does a real bang up job. That's cool to post because you can say, "Look at the phenomenal work of so and so bakery."
yeah, well, there's some relevance. You're hooking up, you're giving a
But
plug
if
to that
it's just
business.
like a dish at a restaurant that they make 20 times a night, and your dish looks just as good as everybody else that ordered that same dish earlier, like there's nothing special about that. It's a
Uh,
good restaurant. That's what they do.
Next up, telling how much money you make to other people.
Yeah.
That's just like it's just not classy. It's kind
No.
of your. Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends. I mean, if it's like a work thing, I don't know, but
I
it
will
really
make an
personal.
exception, which is if you're at work, sharing your salary with others is fine because that way you can make sure that like if you're all working the same position and one of you's making 20 an hour and one of you's making 30 an hour and you're all doing the same thing, then that's not fair. So like everybody knowing what everybody else makes at work can make it so that like employers aren't taking advantage of employees. But like in social settings, you just come off as an ass.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with the public records of salaries and things like that. I don't know. I imagine if you're a restaurant and you've got a couple of good guys, but you have a really tough time filling a position and you hire somebody at a higher rate, does that mean you then need to adjust everybody else's rate even higher?
Yes, you should.
I don't know. I think
Equal pay for equal work.
uh,
Make a justification as to why you're paying the new guy more than the people that are experienced and have been there and shown you loyalty.
because we had a position we needed to fill. The market
Yeah.
dictated that.
And I'm going to tell you right now that if I'm one of those one of the employees that's been there and you're hiring somebody else for like $2 an hour more than me, I'm going to go and say, I want that same rate or more. And then they say no. And I say, all right, cool.
Well, and that's
If that previous position was hard to fill, then guess how hard my position is going to be.
but that's the market work. That's the free economy that it works
Yeah,
itself
but
out. And
but
the
by
business is
having the
forced
open
into
wages, that gives me the power to say, hey, boss, you're screwing me over. You're paying the new guy more than me, and I know more than him.
it. I don't know how I feel about that. I think you're taking the power completely out of the business's hand to
Yeah,
negotiate
I
salary.
agree with that. But I think that the power should be in the employees' hands because the employees are the ones doing the work and making profit for the business.
And I said the market will figure that out. I don't know. Again, my mind's not made up on it. Next up, we have, and I think most people will agree with this. I'll let you read it. It's yours here.
Recording yourself working out in a public gym.
Yeah, I mean, also recording yourself working out kind of on your own just to post it on social media would belong to that 90% of shit
Yeah,
that
but
doesn't belong on
that's
social media.
again, that's less offensive to me because at least it's just you. If you're in a public gym, there's all sorts of people there that might not want to be on video.
Yeah, it's just there's there's not much. I mean, if you're just posting that shit for like some social media, it doesn't fucking belong. Now, it's one thing if like I was, and the other people don't want to be in your fucking video. When we were before I fucked up my foot, when we were running. I did get a video of me running because like I need to see what my fucking form looks like from a third perspective. But I wasn't like there was nobody else there. So
Right, but like if you have your own private gym, if like you've got a home gym or something and you're recording yourself, like to me that's just being like an attention whore, but you're not affecting anybody else, so who cares?
well, yeah. Also, I wasn't posting the
No,
video,
no, no.
so
This is all about
you're saying
post. Yeah,
the
with the
other
intention to
people that
post.
are there. Yeah, and then also you got on here kind of as a follow up, recording other people in public. What do you
Yeah,
mean? Give me an example. Now, do you just mean like B-roll, like if I walk down the street and I'm recording a video of the street and people happen to be in it? Or do you mean like intentionally making people the subject of your video without their consent?
more the second one, and you'll see this from time to time of like, and again, it's a social media thing where like people will just like record people on the street for content for YouTube or whatever. And like those people didn't consent to be in this video, and you don't know what they're saying about you on those videos.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. Some people have a little right to pride. Now, if you're just kind of this ambiguous person in the background, it doesn't matter so much. But
Yeah, but like if you're gonna be like posting that video and then talking about specific people in that video, I guess that would be where it crosses the line.
and recording, and the next up you have
Not voting,
there are some countries that mandate voting.
many of them.
Um, I don't know how I feel on this one, but I am inclined to think that people should be required to vote. I don't know what a punishment would be.
I can tell you what it is in Australia.
To cut off your hand, right?
Yes, and then feed it to the crocodiles. To
What
no,
is?
in Australia, no, like it's mandatory voting, but you know what happens if they catch you like not voting? It's like a $20 fine.
Oh yeah, cool. That's good.
So,
It's
but
like
what
it's like a
their
minor slap on the
turnout
wrist.
ratios are?
What?
Like 93% or something
Mm,
compared to our like 49.
yeah. Well, we could never enforce it in this country.
Right, but like it doesn't need to be onerous or punitive. Punitive.
Punitive.
Punitive. But it
Rosh has
has an
got a
effect.
Rosh has got a good one here. We could talk about this for a lot longer, but we both agree on this. I'm not as sold on as you are, but I'm more inclined to agree with that. Rosh has got people putting their feet up on public seats, and he wrote subway seats, but I'm just encompassing all public seats. Your feet are all over the ground. I don't know, dog shit in the ground. You walk over the dog shit in the sidewalks. Then you go in somewhere and you put your feet up on a chair. Not cool.
I mean, I just assume that any seat in public is already dirty.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not too worried about it, but you shouldn't put your feet up there. Next up, you have
Oh, just paparazzi and the whole celebrity worship culture.
it's so weird to me, these magazines about it's like all they're just other people. Like, are you that concerned with their lives?
Like think about like Taylor Swift, who I have very mixed opinions on. But imagine trying to be her and like living anything close to a normal life. Like
You were just talking about going to the grocery store. She can't go to the
she
grocery
can't do
store.
that.
She can't even go to the mailbox.
No. And like she's dating a football player, and like how could she possibly have a normal relationship with him? They can't do anything out in public ever.
I
Why?
can't go to a restaurant.
No. Can't go to a movie, can't go to a restaurant.
But that's why a lot of very public figure people end up with other public figure people because they have that shared experience. Whereas you take somebody who has not had that experience and they just get dragged into it, and it doesn't work.
You mentioned that. So Dolly Parton, her
Mhm.
husband, like you
Yeah.
know nothing about him.
There are some same thing with Oprah's husband. I mean, maybe more so now, but I don't think anybody knows Oprah's husband.
Yeah, but like Dolly Parton has made it a point of like she has her husband, she loves him, but like he doesn't want to have a part in that aspect of her life, and so she's done a good
She
job of
respects
just
it, yeah.
saying like you don't want to be famous. Cool, you cannot be famous.
And luckily, the paparazzi haven't broken that barrier. Next up, you have.
Going to work sick.
I think this really depends on how sick you are and what type of job you have. But
I
if
think
you're going
in
to,
general,
if you go to work and you're going to, whereas you probably were sick enough that you shouldn't have, and then you infect other people, and they get that level of sick that they have to take time off. That's not good.
You're putting other people in danger of getting sick. You're probably not doing as good of a job as you would have been because you're sick and miserable. And it's all to like kind of just like virtue signal that like I'm a hard worker and I'm going to be
We,
here through thick and thin. But
well,
it
we did a whole podcast about this, and I said you should, but we're also real estate agents, and most of our job is not spent with clients. There's a lot of our job kind of spent solo, wandering around to vacant spaces.
right.
So
So like I work from home. So like I can go to work sick. That's
yeah.
fine. But all right, so Sasha says playing music on the speakerphone should be at least 5 years in prison. The Venezuela treatment.
Um, all right, let's move on. We got a long list here, so let's
All
keep it
right.
going.
So this one these two go together.
Yeah, I'm surprised you missed the second one actually. But go ahead.
Um yeah, but it's close related.
Yeah,
Is entry level jobs that still require like 3 years of experience?
and and then I said skilled jobs that pay minimum wage. It's like how do you it doesn't make any sense to me from the employer's perspective. Like that's where the on the job training comes from with the entry level jobs.
Right.
If you have an entry level job, you have to provide on the job training. You can't expect experience and be paying
If you
minimum.
have experience, by definition, it's not an entry level job.
Well, that's yeah, exactly. So doesn't make any sense. And then I said non entry level jobs that pay entry level wages. And then you've got
Oh, throwing cigarette butts on the ground, and then I'm just going to add in other forms of littering because some people don't see throwing cigarette butts on the ground as littering, and it is.
yeah, the cigarette butts don't bother me as much as like packages and bags of chips and sodas. Like people, I just watch people like walk out of the store. They like open up whatever up and like to open up like a sandwich in a bag and just throw the bag on the ground. It's oh, I got another one that I'm going to add just directly this. Now, I will throw when I'm driving. I'll throw like a banana peel or an apple core into the forest outside.
Yeah, but
Uh,
that's biodegradable.
exactly, and it's also not right, but I still do it.
Yeah, but
Um,
that's at least like that's gonna disappear in like a week.
mhm, yep. Um, I had something in my mind. I completely forgot about it. But we'll move on. I've got things that are acceptable. It shouldn't be is homeless people sleeping in the street. Um, I really think the issue is that a lot of these guys are on drugs and refuse to leave the streets. But I think that should also be an offense. I don't think we should be allowing somebody who's high on drugs
I mean,
to
this
say
is
they want to be in the street.
complicated
It
because
is complicated.
what is your proposed alternative?
Well, that if they want to sleep in the streets and they're high on drugs, then that's an offense, and they need to be removed from the streets because we can't. I mean,
And then we put them in jail?
I walk over so many syringes on a daily basis. I would say on a daily basis, I walk by at least a dozen people who are high and look like they're dying, and I'd say probably another 10 to 20 open used syringes on the ground.
All right.
I,
So my question to you is, do you arrest these people?
So I think these guys need to not just be brought to jail, but they need to be brought to some type of special treatment center that we don't have. We're doing a very poor job dealing with this.
So I think jail is a poor solution.
I agree with you, but there has to be some form of we're removing you from the street. There's if you're going to do drugs openly on the street, then we as a society have to help solve this problem. If you're
So
homeless and addicted to drugs, we're not going to let you rot on the streets, but we're not going to put you in jail either. We're going to come up with a system of rehabilitation because it's not acceptable behavior in a society when we're like think we might have flying cars in a couple of years, which you and I decided
I'm actually okay with that if we can fund and run an adequate system of support where there are places for these people to go to get that kind of a treatment and get them off the streets. If we can fund that, I'm all for it.
Well, but what we've done for the last couple of decades is throw them in jail. That's not
Yeah,
right.
which is
And then,
terrible.
and then I have next up here, acceptable that shouldn't be, is open use of illegal drugs. And I'm not
Yeah.
talking about weed. I'm talking about like serious drugs, like people injecting shit in the streets and then laying in the streets and looking dead. And I walk by a lot of these people every single day. Next up, I think you agree with me on this one. Maybe not. Sandals with socks. Are you a sandals with socks guy?
I'm not really a sandals guy, period.
Well, I think if you're wearing sandals, you should not be wearing socks.
Unless you're German.
Maybe, yeah, I'll buy that, but they have to be very tall socks. Um, next up was the first thing that actually came to mind when we were talking about this as a subject was farting in public. I think if you got to fart, man, you got to go find a place that's not around people.
Elevators are the best for this.
No, they're not. They're not. It's not a good
Leave a present for the next for the next car.
Yeah,
Actually, I believe that's the reason why Yankee Candle came into existence. It's a safe place to fart in the mall.
there you go. If you're on a date, you got a little gas, just Yankee Candle. All right. And I got another one. This is a little controversial. Is the human pet relationships. Now, I don't mind that you have pets. I don't mind that you treat them nicely. You don't treat them like barn animals. But the point where
The humanization
the
of them,
humanization is what I'm getting at. Like you can treat your
or
animal
personification.
like they're part of the family, but
Right.
still acknowledging that they're like going to be eating off the floor, like out of a bowl and like shitting in the grass. Um, but not like having them at the dinner table, talking to them, because if you're talking to an animal, you might as well be looking at the wall and talking to the wall, or looking at a teddy bear and talking to the teddy bear. Like they're not understanding it. There might be some keywords that they understand, but like they're not having the conversation back with you, but you can't hear them because they speak dog. They don't know what you're saying. So I just think it's gone a little too far.
I would agree.
And then I have the
And
pajamas.
especially this goes really far where, like, let's say you're having like a party or a cookout or something, and you say no pets, and like people bring pets, we're like, oh, it's like they're part of my family. Well, you're gonna have to leave them behind today. Like, some people are really insistent that like you accept their dogs like they're a child.
All right, let's get through the rest of these so we hit this. We can get to the bar trivia. Pajamas in public, phone calls in the bathroom. I think that's like I would. So many guys that just take shits and talk on the phone. I think it's fucking terrible. Next up, I have
You can disguise it.
Next up, I have going to like trade shows and events and just taking all the bullshit plastic Chinese printed free merch that you don't need, you will never use, you don't actually want. It's just the consumerist inside of you saying free that
Yeah.
I don't have. And people just, I love going, I don't actually love it, but I always think I chuckle to myself when I see these people at trade shows with a bag from one booth just fully filled to the top with like plastic rulers and like stress balls and all this shit. It's like you're never going to eat. What are you going to do with them? Give them
You
away?
know, you know what I could see? Like, let's imagine you're a teacher. They could use as like prizes in class because the kids are happy to get anything.
Mm. Well, so are you at these trade shows? Yeah, I mean, if you have a real use for them, okay, but you probably don't. Next up,
Probably not.
I've got, and also like, if you teach first grade and you're giving away like Geico stress balls,
I don't know. I think that would be pretty funny.
well, you guys must be real stressed. GPSing everywhere you go, like
I'm
not
100% with you on this one.
like you don't know how to fucking go to school. You were there yesterday and the day before and the day before. You've been going for the last 3 years. Why are you putting the address in your GPS?
Yeah.
Um,
Like, my personal approach to GPS is I will only use it as an absolute last resort.
yeah, I agree. Phone call GPS subscription price models. All these everything I use is now a subscription price. I hate it.
Car manufacturers are trying to get into that game.
I think we did a whole episode on that. I think like episode 150 or 60, we did a episode.
Yeah,
on
like
that.
BMW charging for heated seats. But like, dude, you already have the hardware installed in there. Why are you locking this behind some software key?
Hack your car. Don't update it.
Yeah.
And then I've got the U.S. food system. How if you want to buy a bread, it's not just flour, yeast, and water. There's 35 different things in there, different types of sugar, lots of different types of oil, a gazillion preservatives, and then you have items on there that are like artificial flavors or natural.
Think
flavors.
about it like this: go to a quality bakery and get yourself like a good baguette or whatever, and leave that on the counter, how long is that going to
You
last
got
until it starts to mold or like whatever?
you got 2 days before it's getting hard. But if
Yeah,
you
and
actually
probably
get
3 days before it gets mold,
but
right?
yeah,
Now think about like you buy Wonder Bread.
yeah,
How long is that going to stick on your shelf?
forever.
Right. So if you think about it from a food manufacturer perspective, it's I can make all this stuff, and if it sits on a grocery shelf for a week or 10 days, they can still sell it. Instead, like it massively reduces inventory
Well,
turnover. And
but
so it's just way more profitable for them to make it that way. I'm not
sure.
saying it's right. I'm saying
No,
I'm giving you the reason why it exists.
I'm completely aware, and all this stuff started coming out in the 1950s in the industrialization of America.
Kevin says if it takes 2 days for it to get hard, you should see a doctor.
Children's screen time, excessive screen time for children. Yeah,
Wait, Sasha says unacceptable. Men wearing flip flops. Sasha, you would hate Charleston.
you would hate South Carolina. Here's one. Individually wrapped items that don't need it. Like, have you seen individually wrapped toothpicks?
Yeah, I've seen all sorts of stuff like that.
One fork in a wrapper. I mean,
Yeah,
I get it if you're wrapping, if it's, and I still don't think it's a good idea, but if you have a fork, knife, a napkin, a salt and a pepper packaged, that's more acceptable than a single fork packaged, or
yeah, but it's
individually packaged straws. Like, these things don't need, and this is what really gets me, is the apples that are wrapped, or worse, because the apple, your mouth is coming in contact with the outside of it, but bananas that are wrapped in plastic,
why do
or
you, but the banana's already
they
wrapped.
have their own wrap. That's my point. And then and like corn on the cob that they dehusk and then wrap in plastic. And the next thing I was going to mention earlier when we were talking about littering was when you go to a store and you buy a single item and they put it in a bag.
Yeah,
Which is even worse if that single item has handles itself.
you skipped one.
I'm coming back to it because I want to make sure we don't run out of time. One more on kind of the practices that we know are fully unsustainable that we continue to perpetuate. Like, we can look around and look at a whole bunch of things that are just like going to knock out rainforests or whatever else, and we just
I've got an easy one.
go ahead.
California groundwater in the Central Valley.
I don't know much about that.
You can look if you look for a picture, you can find there's like a telephone pole or something in the Central Valley, and it's got marks of the year, and it shows how far the ground has subsided because of all the groundwater pumping they've done to irrigate the Central Valley. It's like 40 feet or something. It's ridiculous.
And let's see, subscription GPSing, unpaid internships. This is something
completely unacceptable.
I have this on both lists, and I'll explain why when we get to the next one. But I put it on this list, by the way. I put it on this list, and I put it on the other list. So
yeah,
let me give you, and I'll explain why when we get to the other list. But I do think an unpaid internship in almost all cases is unacceptable.
If you're an intern, you're still providing some kind of value to the company, and you should be paid for it.
So let's get to the bar trivia real quick. We hit about the halfway point. The question, episode 254, last episode: even if they are starving, natives in the Arctic will never eat a penguin's egg. Why don't natives in the Arctic eat penguin eggs?
Because there's no penguins there.
No, you are correct. 100% correct. Penguins do not live in the Arctic. They're native only to the southern hemisphere. All right.
You had one last one as things that are acceptable that shouldn't be.
Go ahead. What did I miss?
Children's screen time.
Oh, I thought I said that.
No, I think you skipped it.
Oh, okay. Maybe I did. Yeah, children's screen time is just. I understand there are times I struggle with this from time to time, but I also recognize that it's not a kind of universal answer for shutting up a kid, and needs to be regulated.
Like in small doses, sure, but like I've seen, I'm sure we've all seen plenty of examples of parents where like they have offshored their parenting to iPad.
To an iPad. Have you ever seen the memes or the videos where it's like a 25 or 30-year-old adult man and he's like on an iPad at dinner and his girlfriend's like having to like feed him or some shit, basically like just an idiot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always think they're funny. We will get to our new bar trivia question at the end of the episode, so stay tuned. Don't forget to visit SipTalkPodcast.com. Log your answers to the bar trivia question. Buy us a drink. We'd love to cheers you in an upcoming episode. And we're going to move on to things that aren't acceptable that should be.
All right. So first couple ones, I'm just going to pair some of these up together. So like going out to eat or to the movies by yourself.
Yeah. Here's the issue. It's a lot. So I give this an example. People are like, oh, I feel so awkward going out to eat at a restaurant by myself. I'm like, all right, cool. So imagine you were on like a business trip and it was dinner time. You would go and you'd go to the restaurant and eat by yourself, and you wouldn't feel weird because you know what you're doing, right?
Yep.
So it's like, what if I just told you to go down and stand on the corner for 10 minutes and don't move? Just stand on the corner. You'd feel fucking awkward standing on a New York City corner by yourself. Now let's change the context. Imagine you're waiting for a friend who's meeting you and you're 10 minutes early, but he's meeting you on the corner.
Same behavior, different context.
It's different context. Exactly. So it's
different internal context.
Well, that's the point. Like you can go out to eat alone if you can wrap your head around it being okay.
I think that's same thing with going to the movies alone.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, oh,
I want to see this movie. None of my friends are available right now, but I still want to go see it. Screw it, I'm just going to go see it.
Also, don't take a date to the movies unless like you've been dating for a while. But
yeah, like first date movie's terrible.
First or second date. You guys need to spend time and talk to each other, get to know each other. You can't do that when you're watching a movie. Now, if you've been dating, you can.
If you're like 6 months in, sure, go see a movie.
Next step here.
I'm going to pair this one together. Not wanting to get married or have kids.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. I think everybody's we're seeing it. There was an article on something big the other day about actually the psychology daily email I get also. I was talking about the rise and uptick of people being single and happy in the U.S. and it's happening everywhere, but it's still generally not accepted.
Yeah, there's still tremendous societal pressure, more so for women than men, but not exclusively women.
Next up,
this one, recording police encounters.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this. I think you should be able to record those encounters because you never know what's going to happen. But it's also like like if I just walked up to you and was talking to you and you just shoved a camera in my face, I would feel a little weird. Although now the police, almost all of them have body cameras, so
yeah, which they selectively turn off at convenient moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They don't turn them off. It's malfunction.
Oh, right. But the cameras have this odd way of malfunctioning at just opportune times.
Yeah, right before things heat up. All right, next up.
Kevin says singlehood is only not accepted in the Catholic and Mormon church. I don't know about that. I can think of plenty of...
There's a lot more places not accepted.
Yeah. All right. This one. Not forgiving those who purposely did harm to you. There's a lot of societal pressure to give forgiveness to people.
Well, speaking of Christian, that would be very Christian-like. So I have a different perspective on this. I might not like hold that grudge. I would kind of just entirely let it go. And yeah, you can be forgiven like that. So I have somebody who did some real damage to my company, somebody who I consider a friend, almost like a little brother. And then for his financial gain, went agent by agent through my brokerage, trying to get them to follow him to a new company so that he could get a signing bonus for bringing on a dozen people, which he managed to get like 4 to 6 people out or something. But not just his own team. He went person to person over the course of like 60 people or something, trying to convince them to come with him to a bigger brokerage so he could get a bigger signing bonus. And I don't know if we've ever talked about this, obviously off the podcast, but I'm like, all right, cool. Like I mean, I guess I'd forgive you. I don't like you were taking care of yourself, but realistically, like we're no longer friends. I don't give a shit about you. Have a nice life. I won't be wishing you happy birthday. If I see you in the street, probably just keep walking. I've let it go. It is what it is.
Right. So, but like, I would think there are levels of forgiveness that some people are expected to do, and I think that in certain cases, that's just not fair to expect.
I
Like,
mean, and it also it's kind of contextual. It depends on what was done.
like, yeah, if you're able to fully forgive somebody, great. But like, sometimes the wrong is of a significant enough magnitude
I mean,
that
listen, I could have gone after this guy and been like, "Oh, I'm going to try to find some legal means to do some shit to you." That would be the exact opposite of forgiveness. But I think somewhere in between is generally acceptable in most cases.
yeah, but I just I don't know. I feel like society puts a lot of pressure on people to forgive kind of unconditionally.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't. I agree with you. I don't think, and that's. I mean, that's like a big Jesus Christian thing. So, um, next up, we have things that aren't acceptable that should be marijuana use. I'm not a big fan of the weed, but I don't think it's a very harmful drug. So,
Yeah, it's all about like we all know people that do it to excess and then just don't do anything but weed.
what? And exactly. But that goes with anything. Like,
True.
I mean, it can go with alcohol. It can go with porn. It can go with like I don't know. It can go with food. Um, next up, oh yeah, I don't know what I was writing here. I wrote freedom of choice, and you said to define it. I have no idea what I was writing there.
All right, well, let's just skip that one then.
Oh no, I know. Excuse me. Abortion, the right to choose. Uh, the being able to, should you decide as a woman, you have the right to make a choice.
So you're saying that that's not acceptable and it should be, or
Yeah,
what's your
well,
point
we're
here?
banning it. We're banning it across the country in many red states. They're making abortion illegal. I'm saying it's not acceptable there. Women should have the right to choose.
Okay, yeah. So like,
So I mean, it is acceptable in some places, not acceptable in others. Um,
well, I would go a step further and say that like women that have had abortions tend to be judged pretty harshly, and if
mhm.
you actually talk to women, like it's an
I have,
astonishingly
by the way, I've
it's an
spoken with women.
astonishingly common practice and phenomenon. Like I was talking with a girl a couple months ago, and she asked me, "Is like, would you date somebody that had had an abortion?" I said yes, and she's like, "Okay," because chances are, if you're meeting a girl that's single in her 30s, at some point she's probably had an abortion.
But she assumed that you bought into this stigma that she believed existed.
No, she just asked it as like it was part of a larger conversation.
Yeah. All right, all right, all right. Next up here, we're doing good on time. I feel like regifting. I think that's kind of frowned upon. Um, I was explaining today when I was teaching a sales class this morning about how when a gift has been gifted to you, it has served its purpose. If you don't like it, you can get rid of it. But the gift was in that moment to make the other person feel good about doing something for you and make you feel good by getting an active tribute uh, for someone's care for you. And
Um,
that it's just a symbolic gesture and it has served its purpose once it's been received.
Real quick, so Kevin's just commenting more on the abortion. He's like, yeah, even in the red states, when they've had popular votes, like they've voted in favor of abortion rights. So it's like this small minority that's really controlling the narrative.
Well, just I think it was Ohio. I don't know, somewhere Midwestish.
Kansas and Ohio have votes in the last year and a half or so.
But something
Florida's on the docket for this year.
something just happened where they had paid people to get signatures, and they had more than enough signatures, but because they paid people to go out and get the signatures, that number of signatures had to be taken off, and they lost whatever ballot it was. I think it was Ohio. I don't know. I was listening to the news on the ride home, which I rarely do lately. All right. So, regifting work
Work
now.
naps.
Yeah. I, I mean, they're tough to get away with, but like there are some times where like a 12 to 20-minute siesta is exactly what you need, especially at the rate that we work. Some of us work very intensely. Um, next, we got
Oh, yeah, work naps like totally great. Like sometimes like a 30-minute little nap and like you come back and you're feeling better than you ever did.
I mean,
Let's hit some of these comments real
yeah.
quick. So,
I was just going to say, go ahead.
so AVT Junior 1997 asks if you're a Christian.
I was raised a Christian.
Do you identify with the beliefs now?
Oh, some of them.
And
Well,
then, yeah, Marin LC says, I had an aunt who only gave regifted gifts. She was a legend.
she's a family legend. Yeah.
Kevin says the ballot collections that was in Alabama.
Maybe we're not talking about the same one. Maybe we are. I'm not sure. Let's see. Where am I on this list? Being barefoot. So I'm not saying you're like going to go to Walmart with your shoes off, but like I walk around outside barefoot, and I got in the car today, took off my shoes and drove home. And then when I got home, I was getting out of the truck barefoot, and it hit me that like a lot of people would look at me getting out of the truck barefoot and be like, "That's really strange. Why is he barefoot?"
I mean,
That's
I'd be one of them, but that's because like I'm super particular about having clean feet. Like if my feet feel dirty at all, it just like throws off my whole internal sense of balance. So for example, like I'm in my house, like very rarely am I barefoot. I'm like 99% of the time wearing socks.
really. I mean, listen, I don't want to have smelly feet. Like if I have smelly feet, I will
No, it's
literally.
just like I like having something between my feet in the environment. So like I don't
Oh,
like having anything on my feet. They
I
need to
like
be
the
like
open air, baby. I like the open air.
um
I like the breeze on my toe
uh,
hairs.
I mean, I'll
It's the
take my
only way I
socks
can feel the
off.
breeze running through my hair.
Yeah, I'll take my socks off before bed, and I'll take them off before I go in the shower.
You ever one of those days where you get in the shower with your socks on?
No, I've never been that drunk.
Or maybe it's a hangover. I don't know. Let's see. Barefoot. All right. So rent.
Brash asks if I ever walk on grass barefoot. No, man, fire ants.
Um, I love being barefoot, and I'm not even like a hippie at all. I don't know. I like being barefoot. Um, Rinsing a plate after you use it, rather than like using soap and a dishwasher. So, uh, a lot of times I'll just eat something out of a plate, and then I just give it a little rinse, dry it off, and pop it back in the cabinet. And people think like it needs to be sanitized and bleached and brought to
It depends on what you were
200
eating.
degrees, 200-degree water. It really it depends on what you're eating, and it also depends on like if you leave food on a plate, like bacteria and shit has time to grow. But I just don't think the food is like kind of seeping into your plate at a molecular level. Um, that a rinse isn't really going to solve if you use the plate for 11 minutes. Declining invitations for no reason. Hey, come to our party? No, thank you. I think that if you said that, that wouldn't be very acceptable. But I really think
You
you
just say,
don't need to.
sorry, I've already got other plans.
What I'm saying is you don't even have to give a reason. Oh no, thank you.
Well, if you don't want to give a reason, then just don't respond.
That's even worse.
No, that's better.
Um, Talking back. I
Yeah,
feel like
Kevin, I think he is talking about like breadcrumbs from a sandwich.
yeah. I'm not talking about like lasagna in your bowl, but I mean I don't know. You maybe with warm water, and I might put like maybe a little soap, and then probably because there's a little grease in that. Like if it has some grease, yeah, maybe. All right, let's see. Regifting, rinsing plate, declining bites, talking back. So sometimes you're just kind of stuck with not being able to give your 2 cents when you are right. And I know this drives you nuts, but there are some instances where like
I mean, that might as well be the title of the podcast.
there are some instances where like it's really frowned upon to like say anything back. The problem is like people just get snippy, and I don't think that. But if you have like a valid point, I think you should be allowed to share it.
It depends because a lot of times those situations arise when there's like differential power structures. Like if it's you and then it's your boss, and your boss is saying a whole bunch of stuff that's just completely wrong, but you can't say anything because you don't want to make your boss look stupid.
Yep, that's kind of the territory that I'm thinking about when I'm talking about this. Now, it very contextual. Um, you're laughing at Rash's comment here.
Yeah, a muffin?
Uh, he's talking about food crumbs in bed. James is talking about a muffin in bed.
Which neither Justin or I did ourselves.
No, why is there a muffin in your bed? Oh, that's where that went. And so next up, I have admitting you don't know something. I mean, I'd say that all the time in the podcast. Like, I'm the first one to just say, yo, I have no fucking idea. Like, beats what that's over my head. What are we talking about? Hey, can
Yep.
somebody clue me in? But for some reason, people are really afraid to admit that. I would rather, like, right off the bat, like, figure it out than get 10 minutes into the conversation and be like, I have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah. Like if someone's talking about something that I'm not familiar with, I'm like, yo, I don't know anything about this.
And I'm going to skip ahead one because this is similar. Is changing your mind. It would change my mind, especially when I was running the business. People were like, "Oh, that's not what you said." I was like, "Well, that was 4 months ago. Time has passed. I have gained new knowledge. I now know things I didn't know. So that's why we're changing the policy. That's why we're doing this. That's why
Yeah.
we're making this upgrade."
I'm gonna
Um,
briefly tie this in with politics, where like when people talk about like a candidate and call them a flip flopper, like that's a bad thing. But like, wait, so you're criticizing this person for being able to process new information and refine their policy suggestion based on the fact that they learned? Then that's a bad thing?
well, it also depends on the context because some of these guys just do what they think voters want. Uh,
True, but it
like it just
it's yeah, the rationale behind it. But like the fact that like a politician has changed their mind about a policy is not inherently a bad thing.
um, next up I have is having an old phone or car. And I'm sure there's other things in this category that are just like part of this upgrade culture. Like cars realize that they could sell a hell of a lot more cars if they like made minor changes. So that when you've had a car
Yeah.
now for 2 years, people can tell it's out of date and there's a much different, newer model available.
Physician, heal thyself.
I don't get it.
How many iPhones have you bought in the past 10 years?
Yeah, so I actually decided I don't think I'm going to get. So I've always bought the new iPhone. They come out with a new iPhone. I don't think I'm going to do it this year.
Cool.
I,
Don't do
I
it
also
next year either.
I also don't. Although I may have to because I ran over one of my phones with. I ran over one of my phones with a lawnmower. So
Mm.
this was literally held together with like
I mean,
paper
that's
clips
a
and
reason to
chewing
replace
gum.
the phone. The fact that
So
it's a year old and there's a new model out is not.
yeah, I agree. Even though I'd still do it. And
Yeah.
then the car thing, but also I think like once we have self-driving cars, I may never, I may just continue to buy older cars.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
I mean, I really enjoy manual transmission driving.
I have a feeling that like the latest model car I'll ever own is going to be like a 2015 or a 2016.
I mean, it's. I'm kind of agreeing with you there. It's
Um, Speaking of like driving older cars or stuff, so you know what kind of car Warren Buffett drove for years and years and years? He might still drive it
a
actually.
Toyota Camry.
Yeah, it was like an '89 Camry.
Yeah.
Dude's worth like $50 billion.
To me, that also says like you don't have taste, man. Like,
No, it's
I mean, I get the principle behind it, but it's also like I enjoy cars. I like driving. I think it's cool to have cool cars. That's not on his palate.
right, but
So
like he doesn't feel the need to spend a ton of money on something that brings him no utility and would only be there to flaunt his money or project an image which he does not care about.
exactly, yeah. I wouldn't get it to flaunt or project image. I would get it because I enjoy
Yeah, but
driving.
lots of people do.
Well, obviously. Um, and Raj also mentioned that he has a modest house. Um, so, all right. What do we have here? You wrote this one's highly debatable. Yeah, I agree. Drinking at work. So I think if you have a regular job, you go out to lunch and you have one beer and come back. I don't think that should be an issue. Now,
No,
if you're like
that
a
isn't.
surgeon, if you, I mean, one, if you go out and you have 5 drinks for lunch, probably not okay. Also depends on your job. Um,
I mean, what job would that be okay with?
Real estate, it's not really a job. Yeah. But then you probably wouldn't go back to work after that. And because you'd go see one client and they'd write you a 1-star review and be like, this guy was hammered at our appointment. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's, I suppose it's debatable, but like having one drink, I don't think is an issue. I just don't think all alcohol consumption needs to be taboo, right? Like having a
No, but like
evening.
if you think about like the '50s journalists that had like a 750 of whiskey in their desk drawer, like
uh, yeah. Uh,
that's probably not okay today.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't my office, but that was also a
Right.
real estate office. It was a real estate office. Um, I said changing your mind. Not replying to all messages instantly. I think people just expect. I think people when they message you, they expect an
I'm a
immediate.
natural at this.
The way that I look at it, and I'm getting better at this because I generally reply pretty quick, but just determining what's urgent, important, and not important. Right, like urgent, important, and not important, kind of in descending order of how quickly it needs to be answered. Next up, social media avoidance. If you are not on social media, there must be something wrong with you.
I've heard from a number of people, mostly women, but not exclusively women, that like on a first date, like if the person they're considering going on a date with doesn't have social media, that's an immediate disqualification for them.
Because they can't see inside your life.
Yeah, which is creepy.
Um,
It's
yeah,
creepy to want to do that.
I agree. I think you should meet somebody the organic way, but also looking at what somebody looks like online is not. Uh, it's not a true picture of their life. Like you can totally fake whoever the fuck you are online. It doesn't mean anything. Next up, we have. Uh, okay. The next two are a little controversial. Okay. I put unpaid internships on things that aren't acceptable that should be, because I have a little bit of mixed feelings about this. And the reason being is it really depends on what you're doing for an internship. But when you are young, what do you have a surplus of?
Energy.
Time. Okay. So you, in some cases, may trade time when you know very little and bring nothing to the table for experience. Now, I can tell you as an adult, there are many, many times when I've done a lot of shit for free simply so I could learn, and it was my choice. Um, so this is where I put unpaid internships, remember, on both lists. Uh,
And
but
I just disagree. I
yeah,
don't think that you like that no matter how little you know, if you are sacrificing your time and you are sacrificing other opportunities for this internship, and while you were there, you are providing something of value. Even
okay, so hear me
even
out.
if it's just getting coffee, you're still saving somebody else a trip, and that's valuable.
So, but you could be an intern and be more of a liability, and not a gopher, not somebody who's going for coffee, going for lunch. You're just simply there. You are a liability, and you are there to learn, and you are taxing on the people that you are of their employ. Then, then I,
I don't think that that really happens because if you are so inexperienced and so incompetent that you can't do anything for the company that's interning with you, then that tells me that you did not get enough school.
well, potentially.
No,
Uh,
it's I really believe that is if you know so little that you can't do anything useful for the office or wherever you're at, then that means that you did not take enough classes in your field.
what I'm thinking of is that there's some places that you can't go to learn. You can't go to a school to learn.
Like what?
Uh, I don't know. I'm thinking more kind of the technical side of things.
Every single one of those things, they're places you can go to take classes to learn that skill. Name a
Mm,
skill, there's a school that teaches it.
maybe, but I
There's
mean,
schools for fucking pole dancing, dude.
not the example I was going to come up with, but like sales. Like if I have somebody that wants to come in and wants my time, they're taking away from my day. They're actually
Marketing and management
pulling
classes
me
teach
down.
that
But
kind of stuff.
yeah,
Sales
marketing and
classes teach
management
that stuff.
don't teach you. So when you spend time with somebody who's a great salesperson, you pick up on idiosyncrasies and behaviors and movements and body language that you're never going to learn in school. Like that's what I try to teach in
No,
my
I
sales
get
classes.
that,
It's
but those
really
are
difficult to teach. Uh, oh, we're down on time.
all right.
Next up, I had
Last one, and this one's I disagree with this one too.
texting and driving. All right, next up, here's our bar trivia question before we run out of time. Duncan Drivel was asked how many ducks he had. Well, he said, they just walked down that path and I didn't actually count them, but I remember one duck in front of two ducks, another duck behind two ducks, and another duck between two ducks. How many ducks does Duncan have? I got time to give you that one more time. Duncan Drivel was asked how many ducks he had. Well, he said, they just walked down that path and I didn't actually count them, but I remember one duck in front of two ducks, another duck behind two ducks, and a duck between two ducks. How many ducks does Duncan have? Should have done that with donuts. Dunkin' Donuts. Oh, that's our timer. So we are out of time. Don't forget to visit siptalkpodcast.com. Answer the bar trivia question. Maybe we'll give you a prize. Buy us a drink, and we will cheers you in the next episode. Thank you guys for joining. Adios. See ya. All right, you made it this far. Thank you for joining. See you next time. Don't forget to visit siptalkpodcast.com.